Hi, thank you for joining me today. I'm doing a card demonstration, not really a tutorial, and these cards are all made using the embossing folders by Tim Holtz, his new release. And if you don't know how to use them, please check out my last video, because these are all the backgrounds from my previous video. So I wanted to start off by showing you some of the dies that I'm using, and I'll try as much as I can to show you the names of the dies, where I do know what they are. And a lot of them are not current, so you can't always get these dies. But what I will tell you is that these embossing folders are all the new ones by Tim Holtz this Halloween of 2023. This one's called Crat. And then I used the Boo from the Sizzix die. I used the cat, which I love, that scary looking cat. And then I've used this moon and these bats. This is actually called Moonlight. I do know that just because it's Tim Holtz's latest Halloween release. And I've used the smallest moon. It's a 2-layer, so it's the background and the front. And I love that they're not perfectly round. They're kind of offset, which sometimes when you look at the moon at night, it doesn't actually look round anyway, so pretty cool. And I should have shown you first, but here's finally the card. So that's the moon and the bats. Of course, I've bent my bat wings up. I've created some dimension. The scaredy cat, and I love that the mice are saying boo to the scaredy cat. I've done the boo in glitter, like an orangey red glitter. And you can see how tiny those little mice are, but they cut perfectly. And oh, I wish you could see the dimension on this 3D embossed background. Honestly, just gorgeous. And all the bat wings are standing up. The cat is actually 3D popped away from the background. Of course, it's hard to see some of the dimension just on video, even when you take a photo of your cards, right? Again, another old die that I've had since I very first started crafting, and then that Sizzix Bigs die. I used that beautiful ladybug. I love this die set. I've used it a lot. Sorry, the stamp set. And then this is an older folder again from when I very first started crafting. It's by Spellbinders, and I've used that crow. And I'll just try and show you the relationships of everything as we go along. I do want to point out it is totally fine to fussy cut detailed pieces out of your embossed backgrounds. I actually do it quite a lot, and you'll actually see another one in today's video. So this was the background. It's a texture fades, and it's called Tapestry, and it's not a 3D one, it's a multi-layered one. And this background's actually debossed into a piece of cream cardstock. So there's that gorgeous crow with his crown on. I just embossed him in black, and then I used a gold wax by Sizzix to do the rub over, and then I just fussy cut him out with tiny little pair of scissors. I'll just show you a little bit more detail. This ladybug, it's a very nice sized ladybug. Oftentimes they're really tiny, but I really love this, and I used him. In fact, I've used the set a lot more than I ever thought that I would. Funny enough, I've used the bugs in that set a lot more than I ever thought that I would. The wood wicket, and I've cut that actually out of glitter cardstock. And then that little frame, and I've cut him out of very, very, very heavy card and painted black, and then I've just added in a little bit of gold wax around the edges. These, if you can get your hands on these big dies, they're fantastic for cutting through thick materials or cutting 4 layers of cardstock at a time. Really great. So I thought I would just quickly show you the dimensions of my cards. These are all 5 by 7 and that's in inches. So that's the card basic size. And then that gold layer I've cut 6 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches. And then the green layer is 6 1/2 by 4 1/2, so 1/4 of an inch smaller on each side. And then, oh, that says 6 1/2. Do not cut 6 1/2. It's supposed to be 6 1/4. If you give me a second, I'll quickly change that. So the embossing folders are actually 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 is their finished size. So you can see there's that 1/4 inch, which all the way around is actually 1/8 of an inch that shows. And I do actually like layering my cards quite a lot like that, and sometimes just a little glitter in the in-between layer or a little bit metallic in the in-between layer can look so effective. So this card I've used, again, the new embossing folders, 3D texture fades. This one is called Reptile, and it is, oh, I mean, so dimensional, it's just crazy. Here I've used it more as a stone wall. So even though it's called Reptile, I figure you can do whatever you want. This beautiful stamp is by Carabelle, and then Tim Holtz stencils, layering masks, and this is what I used on the moon. I've used the smaller one. Frightful Things, I do know the name of this one. I've used that spider, and I've used the bats but not the moon. And then this is also a big die, and I've used that one cross there. These big dies, as I say, if you can get your hands on them, go for it, because they are amazing. So there's that cross, and I've actually done a lot of texturing on my cross. So what I actually did was I used a piece of thick, heavy cardstock, 110 pound, to cut the cross, and then I used a Tim Holtz crackle paste, which I've put very thickly onto that cross, sprayed it with black Soot Distress Oxide, and I'll show you on this other one so you can see, and this is it dried, sprayed with Distress Oxide. Now I used Picket Fence in white, which is a white, it's a distress ink, it's not an oxide. Anyway, Picket Fence is kind of a white color, and I just tap it on all over to highlight all the texture in this paste, and voila, there you have a very old, stony looking cross. So you can see there are the bats. From that set, and wings all sticking up. I just love everything to be floating off of my paper. My wall is floating away from the paper, the skulls are floating away from the paper. Those are tiny little spiders from Frightful Things, and the moon stencil. And what I actually did here was I cut out a 2-inch circle in a cream cardstock, and then I just used that smaller size stencil to create the shadowing of the moon. That was Vintage Photo that I used for that. And then there's that skull stamp, and what I've done is I've stamped it and colored it, and then I've picked a piece that I wanted and just fussy cut again around, and you can see that gorgeous 3D. So the dimensions are identical, 5 by 7 card, and then the embossing folder, they always are all 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. So 5 by 7 card, I like to do at least 2 more layers. So that's that, the black and that little piece of stone at the bottom, reptiles, is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then the red layer is 6 1/2 by 4 1/2, and then the gold layer, metallic gold layer here, is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. And you can see it just really fills the background quite nicely. Those little bones are also from Frightful Things, by the way. I love Halloween. So this is my favorite card. Just love this one. This is the Tapestry Texture Fades, and it's a release from this year. It's one of the ones that, as I say, was in my embossing folders video. You can see the gorgeous colors here. And those are also, believe it or not, embossing folders. This is the folder. It's called Skulls, I believe. It's from last year, and it was just sold out so fast because it is crazy fantastic, super 3D'd. And those are the two skulls that I've used there. And then I just use my little tiny scissors and fussy cut. I like fussy cutting. I don't mind it at all. Some people don't like it. I thought I'd just show you this embossing folder, what you can do with it, just so you can see how taking one embossing folder you can actually create so many different looks. That's just black onto white. This is black cardstock and then just highlighted with some grays and whites. Metallic cardstock, you can see that's really close. Metallic cardstock in copper with green paint, and then just while it's damp, rubbing all the highlights off. Brown onto cream cardstock, vintage photo that was. This is black distress ink onto white cardstock, then sprayed with just a spritz of water to let it bleed a little bit. And then this is green cardstock with just some highlighting done with copper wax. I always use the Sizzix luster wax. And you can certainly see the effectiveness of just different colors. The words "The Haunting" are done on my Cricut. And I've put them onto a metallic-y copper background. And then the same with the crow, cut on my Cricut. And then I've just used this perler pen to create blood. Because it's Halloween, it's got to be gory. Also the crow, it's just a plain black cutout, and I've just painted some details onto it. And then I cut the stars out in black glitter from this set to pick up again the black glitter that I've used as my second layer of this background. And then the feathers are cut on my Cricut and just highlighted with a white pen, and then I've just shaped them, done a little bit of 3D shaping, and then put some blood on them. I love that card, I have to be honest. And then finally this one is using this beautiful 3D folder called Cracked. To me it could easily be wood, like a barkish finish, but it's also just looks like cracked. There's gorgeous butterflies, Flutter, CMS 294 by Stampers. I've had them for a number of years, and I love this one aspect. It comes with matching dies. I use this beautiful crochet, and it is like a super detailed lace cutout. And then these stamps by Stampers Anonymous, CMS 435. I've used the word condemned with all the writing there, and then the skull. And I love that one of his new ones really matches the style of this, and I can combine them, which is what I'm going to do in a journal page I'm super excited about. And I'll just quickly show you the relationships. There's that skull, fussy cutout, the word condemned, and then black cardstock for the lace. You have to admit that lace is stunning. And I'll just show you how it's super tiny details, and yet I've never had to use a shim with it. It always cuts perfectly first time. That's a set that I've used a lot. And then the butterflies, you can see I've stamped them, I've watercolored them, and then I've fussy cut them. Oh no, sorry, I didn't fussy cut, I die cut them. And then I've just added some green detail glitter. So the background 5x7, and then all those layers. You can see I've used a little bit of silver onto that embossed background too. And then little bits of sparkly green glitter are called lime green by Stickles, and they exactly match the lime green glitter that I've used in the background. So here are our 5 cards, and I do hope that you feel inspired if you bought these gorgeous backgrounds to perhaps make some Halloween cards, because it's just around the corner now. I know it's 2 months away, but if you're a maker like me, you know that you have to get cracking on these things because Christmas is coming too. And thank you very much for joining me today. Bye for now.